Welcome back to Kleppers Corner Today in History, the show where we take an ordinary date on the calendar and realize it's basically a high-stakes historical group chat, just with fewer emojis and significantly more empires collapsing. Today we're diving into December 12th, also known as December 12th, if you want to sound classy while explaining to your friends that this date is basically the Swiss Army knife of historical chaos. It cuts democracies, it slices empires, it opens technological possibilities, and occasionally it stabs you in the leg just to teach you a lesson about hubris. So buckle up, because this is the day history looked at the calendar, shrugged, and said, let's do everything. Segment 1. The Keystone, the Color Line, and Bush v. Gore walk into a bar. History doesn't always repeat itself, but on December 12th, it absolutely schedules a follow-up appointment. First stop, Pennsylvania, 1787, when the state became the second to ratify the Constitution. Delaware gets bragging rights for going first, but Pennsylvania gets the credit for actually mattering. It's the middle child of ratification, desperate for attention, but also holding the family together. This vote was so rushed, the Federalists practically speed-ran democracy. The Anti-Federalists responded by writing The Dissent of the Minority, which is basically the 1787 version of a Reddit manifesto, except somehow more polite and with fewer people claiming they did their own research. And thank America they did dissent, because that document helped push for the Bill of Rights, which is the only reason your cousin can yell about the First Amendment on Facebook while posting Minion memes. Jump ahead to 1870, when Joseph Rainey becomes the first African American to serve in the House of Representatives. This man went from slavery to Congress in a single lifetime. Meanwhile, some congressmen today still struggle to read their own committee notes. Rainey fought the KKK, pushed civil rights legislation, and gave speeches that would make half of modern politicians slowly melt like that Nazi at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then, December 12th, 2000, the day the Supreme Court said, what if we just choose the president? Bush v. Gore is the moment America collectively stared at a ballot and said, wait, we're voting on this? It was hanging chads, butterfly ballots, and the realization that the fate of the free world might hinge on whether someone in Broward County accidentally smudged a circle. Justice Stevens wrote that the real loser was America's confidence in the judiciary. Justice Scalia wrote, well, Justice Scalia wrote like a guy who desperately wanted everyone to stop recounting because it looked bad. And the rest is history. Or at least recount adjacent. Segment 2, empires behaving badly and regretting it immediately. December 12th loves watching empires make choices the way America loves watching the Tiger King documentary, with fascination, disbelief, and the lingering question of, why did anyone think this was a good idea? Enter 1911 and the Delhi Durbar, Britain's attempt to cosplay as Mughal emperors while announcing they were moving India's capital to Delhi. Nothing screams, we totally understand this region, like staging a glittering imperial festival while actively ignoring every single independence movement happening around you. The British really said, what if we change the capital and absolutely nothing bad happens? Spoiler, everything bad happens. Then we hit 1915, where Yuan Shikai decides China should absolutely have a monarchy again, and that he, purely coincidentally, should be emperor. It lasted 83 days, less time than most gym memberships. Provinces immediately revolted because apparently people who overthrew one emperor weren't super interested in getting a reboot season. And then Kenya, December 12th, 1963. Independence. A year later, Republic. That's right, Kenya speed ran its own constitutional evolution while maintaining more competence than half the world's parliaments. Jomo Kenyatta went from political prisoner to president so fast it could have been a Netflix limited series. December 12th is like, hey, empires, maybe don't? No? Okay, we'll learn the lesson for you. Segment 3. Ships bombed, armies frozen, dictators deciding genocide. December 12th, goes dark. Not all history is inspirational. Some of it punches you in the gut and says, take notes. In 1937, Japan bombed the USS Panay, while America was still pretending neutrality was a good idea. The Japanese apologized, paid reparations, and America said, well, okay, but we're watching you. Flash forward 4 years, and Pearl Harbor suggests maybe America should have watched a little harder. Then Finland, 1939. In the Battle of Tolvajärvi, Finnish troops used moti tactics, basically the art of confusing the Soviet army, which some argue wasn't actually that hard. Finland won a battle that should have been impossible. The Soviets were humiliated. Stalin took notes. Those notes were mostly, fix army, stop losing. But then comes 1941 and Hitler's decision to carry out genocide across Europe. A meeting so evil, it makes every other footnote of the century seem like a warm-up. Goebbels writes in his diary about fulfilling prophecy like he's reviewing a Broadway show. December 12th becomes not a date of bureaucratic policy, but the bureaucratization of horror. A reminder that evil rarely begins with gas chambers, but with meetings. Jump ahead to 1969, Piazza Fontana in Milan. A bombing that kicks off the years of lead, like Italy's national attempt at reenacting every political thriller movie ever made, except real people got hurt. Investigations pointed to neo-fascists, secret services, and more conspiracy than a subreddit about chemtrails. And finally, 1979, South Korea's 12.12 military insurrection, where ambitious generals decided the best way to honor the dream of democracy was to violently overthrow their own government. Because nothing stabilizes a country like armed internal power grabs. The aftermath would lead to Gwangju, a tragedy of courage and loss that reshaped a nation. December 12th, because apparently global stability takes the holidays off. Segment 4. Radio waves, tin donkeys, hovercrafts, and the first American web server plotline. Let's give ourselves a break from the tragedy and talk about the things humans create when they're not trying to conquer each other. 1901, Marconi hears a faint Morse code S travel across the Atlantic. That's right, S. Humanity's first long-distance wireless transmission wasn't a profound message like peace on Earth, but essentially the technological equivalent of a shrug. Then 1915, and the world's first all-metal aircraft, the Junkers J-1. It looked like someone welded together a flying toolbox, but it proved wood and canvas were officially outdated, unless you're building hipster furniture. 1955, Christopher Cockerell patents the hovercraft. His prototype involved coffee cans and a hairdryer, meaning the hovercraft was invented by a man who essentially said, "Watch me turn household garbage into transportation." British engineering at its finest. Then 1991, the first World Wide Web server in the US goes online at Slack. Before this, the web existed only in Europe. December 12th becomes the day the internet realizes it should probably expand beyond Switzerland. A physics librarian and a visiting researcher accidentally launched the entire global web culture that would one day bring us cat memes, online banking, and millions of people having extremely loud arguments with strangers. Segment 5. Miracles, Anxiety, Sinatra, and the movie that made America sweat. In 1531, the Virgin of Guadalupe appears on Juan Diego's tilma. Suddenly, you've got roses blooming in winter, a holy image on cactus fiber, and a unified religious identity for Mexico. This is the moment Catholicism went viral in Mesoamerica. No influencer needed. Then in 1863, Edvard Munch is born, destined to paint the screen, aka the official portrait of everyone who's ever sat through a Zoom meeting that should have been an email. Next up, 1915, Frank Sinatra is born. His birth story includes forceps, injury, and being revived with cold water. Basically, the world's earliest reboot origin story. He grows up to become the most influential voice in American music. Proof that sometimes you start life on hard mode just to flex on everyone later. Then 1967, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner premieres, a film about interracial marriage in a country that had legalized interracial marriage 6 months earlier. The movie stars Sidney Poitier, radiating infinite dignity, Spencer Tracy giving his final performance, and audiences realizing that sometimes Hollywood can be both sentimental and quietly revolutionary. Segment 6, Mines, Quakes, Crashes, and the Day Everything Went Wrong. December 12th sometimes decides, let's remind humans they're not actually in control. In 1866, the Oaks Colliery explosion kills hundreds in England. Mining safety at the time was essentially, good luck, gentlemen. Afterward, the government finally said maybe ventilation mattered. Progress. In 1979, the Tumaco earthquake triggers a tsunami, wiping out entire Colombian and Ecuadorian coastal communities. A reminder that tectonic plates do not care about your plans. Then, 1985, Aero Air Flight 1285 crashes in Newfoundland, killing 256 people, most of them U.S. soldiers returning home for Christmas. Investigations disagreed so dramatically they could have hosted their own televised debate. The result rewrote Canadian aviation oversight entirely. And in 1988, the Clapham Junction crash in London exposes catastrophic maintenance failures. A wiring error leads to 35 deaths. Only after tragedy does the system finally fix itself. A pattern December 12th loves far too much. Segment 7, Paris, Planets, and Formula One Chaos. Our final stop, modern humanity attempting to solve problems bigger than any one nation, or occasionally creating new ones. 2015, the Paris Agreement is signed. The entire world finally agrees climate change exists, and also agrees that maybe we should do something about it. Governments unite. Fossil fuel companies panic. Twitter arguments intensify. Then, 2021, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen enter tied in points. A controversial call sets up the most dramatic final lap in sports history. Verstappen wins. Hamilton fans riot internally. The FIA rewrites its rule book like a student frantically revising a term paper after realizing they misread the assignment. December 12th is history's greatest roller coaster. Inspiring, devastating, outrageous, and occasionally aerodynamic. In conclusion, December 12th isn't a date. It's a syllabus, a reminder that history is never one thing but all things, layered and looping, connecting democracies to dictatorships, science to superstition, tragedies to triumphs. If one day can hold empires, elections, miracles, aircraft, genocide, Sinatra, mining explosions, and the internet, then maybe the real lesson is this. Human history is a mess, but it's our mess, and learning it is the only way to make sure the next December 12th is a little less dramatic, or at least less likely to involve surprise emperors.